POV. You are the President of the United States in the war against Iran. You are sitting in the White House Situation Room. It is 3:17 a.m. The light is cold and bluish, and the faces around you carry the weight of something that cannot be undone. A general places a folder on the table. You don't need to open it to know what's inside. You already know. Iran has crossed the line. Not the line your predecessors drew on paper, but the real line. The one that exists only when it's too late to turn back. You are the President of the United States, and the war has begun. Before we continue, you've just sat in the most dangerous chair in the world. What comes next will change the way you see power. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any details of what's about to happen. Level 1. The inheritance you didn't choose. Before any bombshells, before any speeches, you need to understand what you inherited. Decades of sanctions, broken agreements, funded proxies, denied assassinations, covert operations that never officially existed. The conflict with Iran didn't begin with you. It began before you were born. But now it's yours. Your responsibility at this level is simple and brutal. Don't climb before you understand the whole chessboard. You learn that Iran is not a country. It's a system of systems. There's the visible government. There are the Revolutionary Guards. There's the supreme leader who answers only to God and no one else. You learn that every American move in the region was calculated by them decades in advance. What you gain here is clarity, the clarity of someone who sees the precipice up close for the first time. What you lose is naivete. Any belief that this could be resolved with swift diplomacy vanishes within the first 72 hours of briefings. You hear numbers, ballistic missiles, range, warheads, enrichment capacity. Each number is an incomplete sentence that ends in destruction. The risk at this stage is paralysis. Presidents who hesitate here miss the window of opportunity. To move forward, you need to make the first real decision. Whether or not to authorize the deployment of 2 aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf. It seems small. It isn't. It's the first gesture in a language that Iranians understand perfectly. Level 2, the first movement. You authorized it. The aircraft carriers move. In less than 6 hours, Tehran responds with an official statement calling the movement a criminal provocation. Asian stock. Markets fall. Oil rises. Your phone rings with European leaders urging calm and offering mediation. You thank them. You know they have nothing real to offer. Your responsibility now is to maintain the coalition. You need bases in the region. Qatar, Bahrain, the Emirates. You need Israel not to act unilaterally. You need Saudi Arabia to remain quiet enough not to provoke a parallel religious war. You are playing 5 chess games at the same time, and each one is deadly. What you learn is that alliance is a word that means different things to each person in the room. The Israeli Prime Minister wants immediate results. The Saudi king wants private guarantees that you can't give publicly. The Europeans want meetings. You learn that at this level, the biggest enemy isn't Iran. It's the fragmentation of your own allies. What you gain is time. Time bought with military positioning, with carefully worded statements, with the implicit threat that exists in the weight of an aircraft carrier at attack range. What you lose is control of the domestic narrative. The press starts asking questions. Congress wants hearings. Your approval rating begins to erode. The risk here is an unauthorized incident, a nervous pilot, a ship that gets too close, an Iranian militia attacking an American base in Iraq without direct orders, but with implicit permission. To rise from this level, you need to survive the first real test. 3 American soldiers killed in Baghdad by an Iranian-made drone. Level 3. American blood, 3 soldiers. You receive the news during an official dinner. You finish the sentence you were saying, thank the host, and leave the room with a serenity you don't feel. In the back, your chief of staff is already on the phone. Your Secretary of Defense is waiting. You have 48 hours before the leak reaches the press, maybe less. The responsibility now is to respond in a way that is neither weak nor apocalyptic. This time frame is the shortest in the world. You convene the National Security Council at 2 a.m. The generals present three options. The first is too symbolic. The third could start a full-blown war. You choose the second, as all presidents before you have chosen the second, and you know you are doing exactly what they expected. Surgical strikes against Revolutionary Guard facilities in western Iran. No civilian targets. Missiles launched at 4:22 a.m. Washington time. What you learn is that surgical is a word that only exists in briefings. In reality, 18 people die. Some were soldiers, some were not. You read the report. You fold the page. You continue. What you gain is temporary military credibility. What you lose is any possibility of returning to diplomacy in the next 6 months. The door closes. You heard it close. The risk now is a spiraling escalation. Iran responds by attacking the American embassy in Baghdad. No one dies, but the world is watching. To move up from this level, you need to decide whether to respond to the embassy, attack, or absorb it strategically. Level 4. The war that no one declares. You're at war. Everyone knows it. No one says it. There's no formal declaration because a formal declaration requires Congress. It requires debate. It requires distributed responsibility. And right now, the last thing anyone around you wants is distributed responsibility. Your responsibility now is to manage an undeclared war while governing a country that is beginning to realize what is happening. Fuel prices have risen 40%. The Strait of Hormuz is technically open but practically closed. The global economy has begun to contract. Your Secretary of the Treasury walks into your office with a face you don't want to see. What you learn at this level is the real weight of power. Not the glamorous weight of the movies, the physical, concrete weight of knowing that every decision you make moves markets, moves troops, moves families. You learn that the president doesn't control war. The president responds to war. The military machine has its own momentum. Intelligence has its own agenda. What you get is information. You have access to everything. Intercepted communications from the supreme leader. Reports from insiders. You know more about Iran than any living human being outside the innermost Iranian circle. And that doesn't help as much as you hoped. What you lose is sleep. Literally. Your family, whom you barely saw before, is now a distant concept. The risk now is internal. A senator from your own party goes to the press. The word impeachment appears for the first time in a Washington Post editorial. To rise, you need a clear, photogenic victory that can be shown to the American public as progress. If this script is captivating you, leave a like now. It really helps the channel grow and continue producing content at this level. Level 5. The Poisoned Victory. Intelligence locates General Qasem al-Rashidi, the logistical architect of Iranian operations in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. The man who coordinates the flow of weapons to every proxy that has bled American soldiers over the past 3 years. You authorize the operation. 20 minutes after midnight, a drone eliminates you in Damascus. The following morning, you make a brief, controlled statement. No triumphalism, a sober tone. The polls rise 11 points in 48 hours. But you learn in the following days what a poisoned victory means. Iran uses the general's death as recruitment material. 10,000 young Iranians enlist in the Revolutionary Guards in 2 weeks. Hezbollah launches 340 rockets against northern Israel in a single night. Israel responds. You called the Israeli Prime Minister 3 times. He answered once. What you lose is the illusion that tactical victories produce strategic results. You're in a system that doesn't have an ultimate victory. It only has damage management. The risk is now existential. Iran publicly announces that it has resumed uranium enrichment to 90%. Your Secretary of State enters your office and places an IAEA report on your desk. You read the first page. That's enough. You're on top of the system now. Every phone call you make moves the world. The Russian president calls to offer mediation. You know it's to gain concessions in Europe. The Chinese president doesn't call, which is more frightening than if he did. You call an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. You give a speech. The world watches. Some applaud. Nothing changes. The CIA presents a window, a 72-hour window to attack Iranian nuclear facilities before the level of enrichment renders any conventional attack insufficient. Their generals say it's now or never. Their Secretary of State says an attack on the nuclear facilities is an act of total war. Proportional in this context means that American cities are within range of missiles that Iran claims not to have, and which intelligence confirms it does possess. Sitting in that chair, you realize that absolute power is not freedom. It's the opposite. You have more power than any other human being right now, and your real options are exactly three. And all three are bad. For the first time, you feel that the system doesn't obey you. You obey the system. You authorize the attack. The attacks on the Natanz and Fordo facilities take place in the early hours of October. 70% of Iran's enrichment capacity is destroyed. The world holds its breath. For 6 hours it seemed to work. Then Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz. With that naval mines, with submarines, with the threat of sinking any ship that tries to pass. A third of the world's oil ceases to circulate. In 72 hours, the price of a barrel surpasses $200. In 2 weeks, there are rotating blackouts in 6 American states. His vice president begins giving interviews where he expresses concern about the handling of the crisis. His former Secretary of Defense publishes an article. 2 senators from his party propose a resolution to remove his wartime authority. Betrayal doesn't come from enemies, it comes from within. The attack that destroyed Natanz also killed 12 Iranian civilian technicians. One of them was a 34-year-old woman. Her 6-year-old daughter was photographed at the funeral. The image circulated across 2 billion screens in less than 24 hours. You didn't order their deaths, but you signed the paper. The final decision arrives on a Friday afternoon. Iran offers a conditional ceasefire, American withdrawal from the Persian Gulf, lifting of sanctions, implicit recognition of the Iranian nuclear program. It's capitulation by another name. His generals say no. His economists say the alternative is a global recession. His Secretary of State says the decision is his. She was always his. You make the decision. And here the story refuses to be simple, because any decision you make at this moment is simultaneously right and wrong, and the consequences will take decades to be assessed by people who will never be in this room. You look out the window of the Oval Office. The lawn is green. It's always green, no matter what happens in the world. 6 months later, you are no longer president. The exact details don't matter as much as the fact itself. What matters is that the Situation Room remains lit. Different faces are around that table. New files are being opened. The system doesn't need you to continue. It never has. For a period of time that seemed like an eternity and lasted only a blink of an eye, you were the most powerful person in the world. And what that ultimately means is that you were the person who carried the weight that the system needed someone to carry. The chair already has another name engraved on it, and it's waiting. Leave your first comment below. What would you have done differently in the president's place? Leave a like if this script captivated you from beginning to end. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next ones. And watch the video that's playing on the screen right now. You'll like it just as much as this one.